Hello friends, I realize that tonight is the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior in Michigan. Since I'm in Maine and not Michigan, I decided to just step out behind my house and use this backdrop of November 10th as something to tell the story of the Fitzgerald. She was known as the Titanic of the Great Lakes because she was so huge. At the time she was laid down, she was the largest vessel on the Great Lakes. August 7th of 1957 is when she was laid down, and launched June 7th of 1958. She moved taconite pellets for the last 17 years she was working, which is a form of iron ore. And she had several captains throughout her history. Captain Peter Pulser was known for piping music, whether it was day or night, over the ship's intercom while passing through the St. Clair and Detroit rivers between Lake Huron and Lake Erie. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is known as one of the great tragedies of the Great Lakes, and she's part of the public consciousness in large part because of the 1976 rock ballad, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, by singer Gordon Lightfoot. 29 men in total were upon the Edmund Fitzgerald that night, and all 29 lives were lost. If you know the song, the Maritime Sailors Cathedral in Detroit rang the bell 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The last captain was Ernest M. McSorley, who was, of course, aboard her the night that she sunk. And she had begun to list. There was just way too much iron ore aboard the ship, and ultimately it was too much for the ship to handle. When they radioed him, he said that they were holding their own, and that was the last communication that they actually received from the Edmund Fitzgerald. One of the worst parts was that they were only 15 miles from Whitefish Bay, which was between two twin cities in Michigan and Ontario, Canada. So if they had just put 15 more miles behind them, then they would have been at safety, which is also referenced in Gordon Lightfoot's song. There were divers that tried to dive down to the Fitzgerald various times. So eventually they made it actually an official grave, so it cannot be doved down to now. And there was at least one expedition that tried to see if they could retrieve any bodies. In doing so, they actually passed over a body, and it was published in the newspaper, but the families objected, of course, rightfully so it was actually taken down. It is said that in Lake Superior, she never gives up her dead, and it's largely because it's freezing cold. It's in the lower 30s, so pretty much any boat that sinks or vessel that sinks in Lake Superior, the bodies will very, very slowly decompose, but it's a natural freezer, essentially. The SS Kamloops also sank in Superior, among literally probably hundreds of other ships. It's basically a freshwater ocean, but on the Kamloops there is still remnants of a crew member about 100 years later floating around in the Kamloops engine room. They call him Grandpa or Old Whitey, and that's for the same reason, because things decompose so slowly in the Great Lakes. But wanted to take a minute on the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Fitzgerald to make a quick video about it.